Welcome to the summit, The Beauty of Existence as You. And I can now introduce you to Prajna O'Hara. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing this summit together. And oh, it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. And we'll talk about our nature, what we are. And you're a transpersonal psychologist, and you're also a trauma-informed Hakomi therapist, and into the mystery of life, or which is actually not that much of a mystery, but it is a mystery too. So it's both. But you also work a lot with people about embodiment and integration, and guiding people to their true nature, we could call it. So
I really guide people to live their juiciness, to embody their aliveness and to heal whatever wounded parts still need resolution. So I like the trauma piece very much. And I'm also a very busy mom and an author.
Yeah. And what is it that that brings this juiciness alive, or the aliveness? What is that?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, because I think that as soon as we start to define something and give a label and have a sense of feeling that we've arrived, even with awakening or something like that, we stop, our curiosity starts to close off, and we no longer explore. So ecstasy, or your true nature, is ecstatic. It's like so rooted in the body. And I think that as we continue to evolve and grow, we have this ongoing spiraling that happens where there's more and more to explore. Kind of like we deepen, we come into a rest, and then we may be very active, and there may be a resting time. And so it's like ecstasy, I think of that as our intrinsic nature. And it's something that's, well, intrinsic to all of us. And this gets covered over by different beliefs or wounds that happen. But as we awaken and we really lean into, what's essentially true about us, it's inborn, that joy that you see in a young child. It's so natural to us. And also in the early phase, in the early age of development, we're wired for connection. So if there isn't connection there, wounding can happen. So as we grow and evolve and awaken and mature, we may need to recycle back to gather these different parts that still might need to be held and healed. And then our expression is much juicier and more alive. It's very enlivened. Each time we go back to gather a part of ourselves, there's just juice and aliveness with that. And we stop like denying ourselves of pleasure. In spiritual cultures, pleasure can be something that, you're not supposed to have, perhaps. I mean, it's a very recent in the last 2,000 years in patriarchal culture. It's kind of to suppress the needs of the body, the pleasures in the body. But when we really lean in, pleasure is so natural to us, and freedom gives us the permission to go after what it is we enjoy, what gives us pleasure, what makes us feel alive. So it isn't ever defined. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's an aliveness that's always open and ever changing, or you can not really grasp it. It's just an aliveness that is.
Well, I think you can feel it, and I think sometimes that we can be numb to our aliveness, but the capacity, continues to expand and grow as we touch into what's really essential about us. So that aliveness, you could say, becomes more and more enlivened. I don't think it's ever static. In my own experience of exploring, I can say that the realization that I may have had much earlier is so different now. And I think it's really vital for us that we don't, ever kind of get comfortable in a particular way of being, because there's always more to explore. And life will shake us. I'm a busy mom. I've had a lot of challenge in my life. And I think that life is forever inviting us to a deepening, into a greater evolution. Because when you really think and consider unity consciousness, the fabric of existence in which we all are part of, it includes everything. So as we deepen and we spiral back and gather parts of ourselves, we're gathering parts of humanity. So unity isn't a conceptual kind of thing. It's actual, where whatever we're looking at is mirroring back to us ourselves. So if there's a place in our environments or in our society or in our culture where we are still holding some kind of separation, then we haven't really included that part. We haven't explored, like, what is that? What is that about? That curiosity that allows us to open even more to the human family, to all beings, to all of existence. That has nothing to do with, a singular identity, as you know.
Yeah. It's just the being that is open to what life presents. And it doesn't have anything to do with the personality or the character in the story. It's
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
like
if
open
we
space.
yes, open space until it's not. And then when we feel like we close off, because that happens where there's protection or guarding, then that's the invitation to explore and inquire. Like, what am I not allowing myself to feel? Or what am I not letting in? Or what am I, holding back? And there might be a very good reason for that. It doesn't mean we have to push, but it's like the invitation is, how can I soften and allow myself to feel whatever part might be feeling split off or separate? In my experience, awakening doesn't happen all at once. There's that initial kind of, lighting up of feeling yourself as part of the fabric of existence, and identity and mental constructs loosen and fall away. But there's still like so much to being human, and I think often in spiritual culture, we forget to allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to be fully human, to be touched, by every part of life. And I mentioned ecstasy before, and in matriarchal cultures that were much more earth-based and very egalitarian, there was always, what came with ecstasy, hand in hand, always with it, is a capacity to respond. So you can be in your natural state of happiness or ecstasy, whatever you want to call that. But with that, there's a resting, but there's also a responding to life. Like, life is responding to life. And that's been a huge part of my practice or my unfolding, is to listen to what life is presenting and what is the response to this. And I know that if I have a knee-jerk reaction or I react to it and I feel myself closing, that then there's something more to explore, like, what is the response? And I think this is how spirituality is evolving for us, you know, where we can be in reciprocity with all beings. You know, we can be listening and we can be responding. And of course, that always happens first with ourselves. Like, are we loving what's right here? You know, are we feeling our ecstasy, our worth, our beauty, our exquisiteness? And the more that we allow for that, then we can respond to who might not be feeling that out here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or might be harming, you know, something. And then we can step back and say, you know, so how do I respond to that? How do I be in a place where I'm not harming, where I'm contributing beauty?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I might be going off topic, but I recently, I think I told you I broke my leg and I'm healing, and it's given me a lot of time in the horizontal position. Like now I can't really even go to my office, so I'm here in my room. And it's given me such an opportunity to consider so many more things, like not to have the use of your body, you know, to like wake up in the morning and feel alive, feel this exquisite beauty that wants to create and give and engage and naturally is, you know, feels connected to life. But then the body is not able to function. So it's really taken me through a deep, deep exploration that has heightened compassion, you know, for humanity. You know, and it also shows me too that even without the functioning of the body, it doesn't change who I am. It changes for a little bit how I might be able to engage or participate, but it doesn't touch the essence of who I am. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Like, that's beauty right there, because I have children with disabilities and I'm often curious, like, what their experience is. And I see their innocence. I see their beauty. I see their connection to life, even though they may physically not be able to engage in the same way that you and I can. And that to me is exquisite beauty, you know, to like see the diversity that we have in life and to feel the sameness in that, and how we may have different human experiences, but within that we all share the same humanity. And to me, that's amazing.
Yeah.
To really, you know, recognize that in a really deep way.
Yeah. So it's like the existence, just existing and having these senses and this world and this life is enough. Like, even if you can't, for example, physically do all these things, but just being alive in itself is ecstasy.
Yes, it's definitely ecstasy. And you are enough, you know, like each and every one of us is enough. But we live in a culture that tells us we're not enough, you know, or something's different about you, or something's wrong, you know, and then we get into this consumerism, and that's what seeking actually is all about. It's trying to overcome the belief that something here is not enough, so I'm going to add on to it. You know, I'm going to get to a place where I am enough, you know, but you and I know that that can never happen through accumulating things on the outside. You know, so that's something we all need to reckon with in our own being. Like that's the awakening, is waking up to that sense of, just what I am is enough. You know, I love this, like what I am in my heart, in my being, in my body is enough. But then you couldn't be in a body with a disability or anything else that may be marginalized in our culture and discriminated against or judged against. And then that creates lots of different hardships. But for that person, or for any person, they still might want to function. They still might want to, that I think that's where love comes into action. Like they might want something in the culture, in the society, or in the world to make it more easeful for them, to be without these restraints. And we all want that. We all want to be able to express who we are with the least amount of obstacles in the way. It's like, how do we move those obstacles? I mean, I was out today in my wheelchair because that's the only way I can get around right now. And I love that I can push what do you call it, a switch that turns on these lights for all the traffic to start. Now, 10 years ago, we didn't have that. It's actually came into my neighborhood only 5 years ago. But this is like the world saying to people in wheelchairs that I see you. I see that you need an adaptation to be able to, navigate life with a little more ease. I see you in your enoughness, and I want to accommodate your body. I think that's what beauty is. Beauty is seeing people as they are, not asking them to be different, but wondering and being curious, how can I make life more easeful for you? How can I support you to have the same opportunities that I have? How can I use my privilege to benefit you?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is like the love, the kindness, and that is what was between people, right? The interaction, the relationships. It's all about the love flowing, if it can flow freely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
love. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just thinking of the open space, and because it's like you don't have all these judgments and expectations about how things should be. So when there's that open space, it's like everyone can be who they are as they are in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And much more so now. So we're really evolving as a spiritual culture. All of our cultures, some cultures it's harder, but to me, this is a spiritual evolution, is for that heart to be able to respond in a way that can make somebody else's life easier. So we're not like just attending to what's here, but we're not all free until everyone is free. And so this is my human family. And so how does this heart respond?
Yeah.
And each time we respond, in my experience, the heart expands. It includes more, because we might have had an idea about entering into a particular situation in life, and maybe some fear comes up. We might doubt ourselves or not know if we have the skill, to kind of enter into a difficult conversation or a environment that we haven't been in before. But when we can allow our bodies to feel the energy of that fear and feel how it's actually coming from ecstasy, it's coming from love, it's coming from something that's so intrinsic to us that wants to connect. We're wired for connection. And connection is love in action. When we connect here, how do we connect out there? How do we listen? So I have a lot of questions. You might, I love exploring questions. I love listening and exploring, okay, I can have a certain kind of life, but it doesn't stop there. It's what about the people around me? And maybe it's good that I'm the mom that ended up with these children. the children that I have, because they're my teachers. Like they're teaching me something that I don't think I could have gotten from a spiritual community or a teacher or books. Like they're my teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like life for each individual, you know, how life turns out and what life presents for us is, that's maybe because it's something that can make us go deeper into, you know, what am I really in my essence, and this love that we are can fully, you know, bloom, or we can I don't know, it's almost like all these challenges in life and also all the joys, everything is, it's like a path in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're speaking about now like touches onto the feminine side of awakening. You know, we hear a lot about transcendence and, you know, kind of really up and expanding out. But the feminine really brings us down and into our hearts. It's almost like the masculine and the feminine meet at the heart, you know, where the feminine is more grounded in the belly and in our womb and in our connection to earth, you know, like we're sitting on the great lap of the mother, you know. And I think it's when we allow the soul of the feminine to be acknowledged and to like heal whatever wounding might be there within the feminine energies. You know, like this is what really gives us the capacity for aliveness, for connection, for meeting feelings, for being human, for embracing all of life. You know, it just gives us such great permission to kind of, you know, make mistakes, to be, you know, to fall down and get up again and know that the lap of the mother is always there for us. Because often in our cultures, you know, we're so conditioned to kind of move in a linear fashion, you know, like there's something to get to, and I need to get rid of all of this in order to get there. But the awakening of the feminine is really a stopping of that kind of need to progress somewhere, but to drop inside of ourselves, you know, spiral back in and gather and meet our humanness in also many ways. You know, so sometimes that could be perceived as a regression, you know, or a failing. But we actually, in my opinion anyway, in my experience, we don't really evolve without regressing, you know, without having a time of rest, having a time of leaning in and listening and collapsing. You know, like me, I just got to collapse for 3 months. And I think it's the first time I've really stopped in many years, you know, so much attending to life. And it's like, we need that. We need rest. We need that time to gather ourselves and listen, you know, to what in our interior life still needs to be attended to. And that's what allows us to evolve and embrace more of the ground of humanity, you know, like the whole entire fabric of existence, not just one part that for us, for most of us, has been kind of passed down to us in a masculine way. But here we get to like level things out and really, you know, embrace everything. And to you asked in the beginning, like that's juiciness to me. You know, that's our aliveness, like being alive in our bodies, being alive in our sexuality, you know, exploring our sexuality, what it means to be in a woman's body. What does it mean to give birth, to be creative? What does it mean to join with my sisters and my brothers, you know, as equals, no matter what gender or color or race or any of those things? Like, I think this is what makes spirituality interesting, is when it like touches into the whole human family. as well as the earth, of course, who's calling us.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That's
it's the,
that's the same. Sorry, I was just going to say that's the essential sameness. We're all the same.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. It's all this or that, or it's all the same source or essence, and and this is that too. It's not like there's any difference in this form, all these manifestations and source is one and the same.
Mhm.
It's just different, like energies showing up, or energies interacting, and there's no difference from. I mean, we are source. It's like, yeah, and that is absolutely beautiful too. That, wow.
Mhm.
And I get to experience life as this body mind in a world that is just amazing, right? Too. I mean, it is a beautiful world in that way. And then maybe sometimes it looks like it's not such a beautiful world because of all these traumas and things that happens in the world. And so, yeah, can you speak a little bit about the opposites? There's the opposites in the world, in our lives. And because you spoke about the feminine and the masculine kind of meeting, and so
Yeah.
it's like all this duality, but it's
Yeah.
actually all non-dual.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the perception of opposition or opposites, black and white, good or bad. I think we learn this. Like this is something we learn. We learn to create separation and differences. And it might be true. Sometimes something comes to us and it's brutal. And then something comes to us and it's beautiful. But each are equally essential in a sense. The hard stuff, the challenge that you spoke about, because it's that challenge that pushes us back in a sense, onto our knees even, to like grapple with some bigger issue, to feel, some sense of grief or loss or heartbreak, that happens in life. That's life, is always birthing and dying and living and birthing and dying. All of this is happening. We're so connected to the cycles of life. But I don't feel, in my experience, that there's really a separation between them, that there's a natural rhythm and cycle of all of these different energies. And when one energy hits us really strong, it's an invitation to kind of really feel that. And in that, in my experience, it brings a balance and a harmony with that energy that might feel it's in opposition to it. Like I said, how the masculine may have been perceived one way or presented to us in a particular way, but that's also just a label, that if we take that label to mean something, then we're no longer curious about it. So let's just think of them as energies, so maybe it's a dominant energy, it feels kind of like it ranks and, positions itself in a certain way. And feminine energies might feel softer and more inviting and more like holding, and also quite fierce too. But all of these energies are welcome, not one is better than the other. But I think like as we allow energy to just be energy as it is, it does have this capacity to bring our lives into greater harmony, first within ourselves, because I don't know that I'd even identify myself as male or female, but I have both of these energies, and they're all useful, right? Like gender is a social construct in a way. So many things are social constructs. And these definitions help us in a way to communicate and maybe understand each other. But I really do feel in our spiritual evolution, we kind of are unpacking the labels. We're unpacking the conditioning, all the different ways that we might perceive, because that's what we've been told. So really, health and wellness and exquisite beauty is about balance and harmony. So how can we allow these energies to come into harmony or balance within us? And if they're not, can we be curious about that? And what is it teaching us? What is it wanting to inform? What's needed in this situation? And that's very much kind of like, as a Hakomi therapist who work in that way, like, really exploring sensations and energies to be able to bring us into, well, for lack of a better word, I'll say right relationship, a harmonious relationship with all the different aspects of who we are and how we show up in life, so that we have a comfort, in a sense, in our own skin, and we can feel like, empowered to engage with life, so we're not running away from anything, but we're free to engage, free to express, free to be alive, free to fall in love, free to change our jobs, free to grow a family, free to do whatever it is, which might not fit into a traditional spiritual context or frame of reference. But that's true freedom. It can't frame itself in anything.
Yeah. So it's the curiosity, exploration, you could say, and of all these energies that happens in a body, right? Like we feel them, we feel all these, we sense them, and it's interaction, outer inner world, you could say. It's just so much, but we can be the space for all that to dance or to happen, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Respond to any of it as being, that's who I am. That's who I am. No, that it's just like, well, I'm everything that happens, and nothing either, because I'm actually, they come and go also. So I can't really be any of them. I can't identify with any of all these energies because they always change. It happens, but then as soon as they happen, they're gone again, and then something else. And so it seems like we're in a constant flow of energies, and the space where all that energy interaction happens seems more like the permanent, changeless space or existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you say about, feeling yourself as a space, the space of existence where all energies happen, and energies do come and go. And also, I feel it's really important to know that we have choice too, in what energies come to us. Like we learn that our bodies, are, we have this form for a reason. And there may be certain things we say, no to, like, you're not welcome here. If it's not our responsibility, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there might be another time where we're saying no to something out of resistance because it's reflecting back to us something that maybe we do have to let come in, whether we need help for that or support, but maybe it is something to teach us. But many times, I think that a lot of people on the spiritual journey can kind of get overwhelmed when they really open up as space. It can be a beautiful and sometimes overwhelming experience to really lose all your boundaries. You know, we can go through phases like that. I remember that for myself, and not having a boundary. Not my oldest daughter is incredibly sensitive. And when she was young, she wasn't really able to like not absorb other people's energy. So we really had to work to teach her to, you know, say, no, this is where you end and the other person begins. You know, and that's not your responsibility. So this is part of where the egoic nature, you could say, you know, of having this body to attend to is important to have healthy, you know, and intact, where ego in the sense of attaching to thoughts, you know, moving through the mind that are limiting us and are causing us suffering, that is unhealthy ego. Yeah. But there is healthy ego, and there's toxic ego, there's toxic energies. And it's important for us to be able to discern the difference and to feel empowered to say, yeah, this belongs to me. I'm going to attend to it. And like, no, that can stay right out there because it's not for me.
Yeah. And I think is we kind of know how to discern when we listen to our hearts, you know, when it's like an intuition kind of, it's like, okay, this just does not feel right. I shouldn't go there, and we don't, right? It's we gotta listen to, because of course this body mind wants to survive, have a life, right? So it's like
wired for survival and connection and safety. Yeah. Oh, good one. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. And sometimes we might not get it right, and that's part of the learning and the growth and of the mystery that we are. You know, we might make a mistake, and it's like, okay, you know, what do I learn from that so I don't end up in that kind of situation again, whether it be a relationship or a job, or, you know, overspending your bank account or whatever it might be, you know, like, okay, so how do I learn from that and not get in a situation of feeling devastated once again?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stopping where we resource ourselves again, right? In the space of our being, of existence in our heart, where there's just so much nourishment and care.
Yeah. And that's because every situation is different too in life. So you can never say, oh, it should always be like this, or I'll just do that. You can't really, every situation is so different. And so it's like, it's more like the spontaneous kind of advice from your heart, you know, that you should follow more than the dogma or the doctrines of this is how morality is and this is ethics, and you know, it's
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, exactly.
Fresh and raw somehow. The existence, you know, life is always fresh and raw, and so then you are also fresh and raw. So you can never put yourself in a box ever, you know.
Yes, and that's what keeps the journey so interesting. You know, like that's what keeps you or myself engaged, you know, alive and curious and wanting to explore even more. You know, there's so much to explore in this universe.
Yeah, there really is. And both, you know, in the outer world and in the inner world is also like that aliveness, you know, explore that aliveness, like and just rest in it, or be it. And I don't know, that's the thing. It's also like we don't really know much, you know. We humans know a lot, and at the same time we don't know a lot. It's so it just seems so unknown as well at the same time, right? Like I have no idea really of.
But I like what you were saying about intuition, because it ties into knowing in the way of knowing from the inside, you know, this deeper knowing that I think is closely connected to intuition, in the sense that our body doesn't lie, and we can trust our bodies, we can trust our intuition, our hearts, to guide us. And I think for me that I needed to learn so many times, and I'm still learning it, it's like a never-ending learning, is just to pause, to slow down, to let yourself go slow, to listen. We can, it can be so like entrained in our psychic to do, this do, but to not do, like, wow,
Yeah.
that is not easy. But
Yeah.
that really is an essential part of the journey, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Be still and know I'm God, right? Like, yeah. Not always be caught up in the distractions, you could say, but like really be still and listen. I like the word listen.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing to listen to, just listen.
And the quieter we get, the quieter for myself that I allow myself to become, there is always a listening. There is like, it's like then the listening moves beyond this body. It's like becomes this field of listening, and you hear things you've never heard before. And it's really closely connected to feeling and sensing. Like listening is like a sensing, that it's not happening with the ears, but it's like a whole body spreading itself out and feeling and listening and attuning to almost like a universal heartbeat, a heart that is rooted in the earth, connected to all things. And that really shifts, I think, for myself, how I walk on this earth. Like even I don't really call myself a teacher. I did at one time, a long time ago. And the reason is, like, if I say that, I have to say I'm also a student, because like I feel like whenever I'm giving a message or feeling like I'm teaching something, in that very same exact moment, I'm learning something, or what I have isn't really worthwhile. Like if it's gonna land and be a contribution, to me, it feels like both are happening at the same time. A teaching and a learning, a leading and a following, a giving and a taking, like this reciprocity that we are developing and we need to develop, to have with each other and to have with our Earth Mother, because things have been out of balance for quite some time. And the more of us who come into this heart rooted in the earth, like listening and feeling with our whole bodies, we do hear what she needs. We do hear what humanity needs. And we are able to respond to that in a way that we didn't know was possible before, and it just informs itself one step at a time. We don't know the next step. We just take the one we're on, and then the next one will follow. And that's the unknown part that you're speaking about. Like we don't know what the heck's going on, really. Like, what the heck is going on? When are we going to get out of this situation? Like, we who knows? It will never, ever again be what it was before. We know that, but we don't know where we're going. But I feel a deep, deep calling, a universal calling to all of us. Like this is a earth awakening. This is like waking, the planet is waking up to a deep call. For me, it feels like to be in this reciprocity, which engages exquisite beauty in all of us. But that exquisite beauty will not manifest itself without all of us showing up with listening, and with receiving and giving, both. There's been enough taking, we know that, for those who have gone before us. But now it's like, how do we listen well enough to feel what our contribution can be? How do we respond? And to me, that's evolution, spiritual evolution in a really big way. Not that I'm necessarily good at it, but I'm learning and I'm listening, and I want to be good. I want to contribute something meaningful.
Yeah, and meaningful, because sometimes we hear, oh yeah, there's no meaning, there's no purpose, really, but somewhere I just, yeah, somewhere I feel like there is some meaning, there is some purpose, but it's for this existence and love to be flowering. It's like, as humans, for us humans, it's as humans, but if it's a tree, it's as a tree. If it's an animal, it's as an animal, and other realms that we don't even know of, maybe. So it's kind of like, yeah, let's be fully human and explore this humanness, and it feels like it is birthed from love. It's like,
yeah that's the fabric of existence, this birthing out of love. Yeah, that's what's going to save us all, love. Not that we need to be saved in a on one level, that's not the case, but in a practical kind of human way, there's much to do. There's much to take care of. Maybe I'm only saying that for me because I live with a marginalized group of people. So I know there's always something to do. It's like it never ends. Yeah, but that is a teaching for me, because thank you. It's like, thank you for putting this in my face so I can learn from this, and I can grow my heart in directions that I didn't know was possible. I don't have a choice in this, so the showing up, it's like, yeah, because if I don't show up, I'm just going to suffer.
Yeah, it's and it's also it's kind of natural to show up, if you are open, if you're not held back by your fears. And
exactly, yeah. And if you're connected, to your heart, like if you're really wired in, you have that essential wiring is on fire, that the sense of belonging and connection, and like on one level, everything matters, we evolve, and that freedom is like, okay, I'm free to let this matter, to be vulnerable and try to make something better for somebody else, right? To take steps. Yeah. Well, we've gone for a while. I don't know if you want to keep going, or if you want to kind of try to stay to your time frame.
I'm losing time. Well, thank you so much for being here, and your website. What's your website?
Yes, my website is Prajna, which is Prajna O'Hara, OHARA.com. Yeah, and on there you'll see, that I have a book there, Edge of Grace, which is a very well-read book, loved by everyone who reads it, so check it out. And I have another book coming, and I have retreats in Europe, and I also take groups to Peru. I have a very kind of limited private practice anymore. I've kind of been, closing that down a little bit. I like to meet more with groups and do the retreats. And I'm very engaged in writing. I love to write. So, and that takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do have retreats coming up in Spain and in Germany, and sometimes I have retreats here in Santa Cruz, and I do online events. And I love to work with supporting people to acknowledge the feminine soul and to attend to any healing that may have to happen so that we can come more and more into balance and into our juicy aliveness. That's like one of my greatest interests.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure, Susan. So great to talk with you. Thank you for having me, and I hope we get to talk again.
Yes.